Hello everyone. Last week we talked about Khadgar, how he became a student of Medivh, lost his youth and joined the Alliance of Lordaeron to stop the first Horde invasion. This week we're going to continue the story and we're going to see what else he has done, since even though the portal was destroyed, they were unable to completely disconnect the link between Azeroth and Draenor. The Horde would return for a second invasion and Khadgar would be needed once again, so let's begin, shall we? I hope you'll enjoy. On Draenor, the Orc Ner'zhul, he was feeling sorry for himself, and the Death Knight Teron'gor fiend, he was not ready to give up. While he was alive, Teron'gor, he was a warlock of Gul'dan's Shadow Council. He was murdered by Orgrim Doomhammer, only to be resurrected by Gul'dan as a Death Knight. He felt more loyal to the Horde than he did to Gul'dan, and his plans was to open the Dark Portal, collect some artifacts from Azeroth, and use those artifacts to create more portals to different worlds. Their first invasion, it might have failed, but surely there were more planets out there that were more easy to conquer. So he got Ner'zhul on board, and they used the Skull of Gul'dan to reopen the Dark Portal. As I explained in part 1, Gul'dan lost his life within the Tomb of Sargeras, but his skull was picked up by an orc, it switched owners a couple of times, until Hyrkon's Skullsplinter, chieftain of the Bone Chewer clan, he got his hands on it. They needed this skull to open the Dark Portal, so Gromar's Hellscream, he was sent to collect it, and as you might imagine, Hyrkon, he was not willing to give it up. Gromar's was forced to take out the chieftain, and with the skull, they reopened the portal and they started their second invasion, not to conquer the planets, but to collect 3 artifacts. The Book of Medivh, the Eye of Dalaran, and the Jeweled Scepter of Sargeras. The Alliance during their times of peace, they had not sit on their hands, they had built Nethergard Keep to keep an eye on the portal, and they right away knew about the Orcish invasion, but they had no idea what the Orcs were planning to do. As the Orcs worked on getting the artifacts, the Alliance tried to hold their keep while finding these answers. To fulfill their mission, the Orcs, they were forced to get into an alliance with the Black Dragon aspect Deathwing himself. Deathwing, he wanted the Orcs to transfer some of his eggs to Draenor, since a new planet to conquer, it was simply too tempting to resist. In exchange, he and his children, they helped the Orcs with their mission, and together they were successful in retrieving all that they required. As they made their way back, the Alliance, led by Tyrellian, Khadgar, Illyria Windrunner, Dan of Trollbane and Curdran Wildhammer, they found out what the Horde was planning to do by interrogating one of their orcs. They knew that they had to stop the Orcish plans, not just for themselves, not just for Azeroth, but to prevent the Orcs from invading more planets and dealing the same damage as they had done to Azeroth. The Alliance, they were not forced to go through the portal, they were offered a choice. They knew the risk and they stepped through the Dark Portal all the same.
This is our chance! Storm the portal!
As Khadgar stepped through the portal and got his first look at the planet of the Orcs, he looked around himself and he was scared. He recognized the planet, he recognized the area from his vision in Karazhan, and he feared that his time would come soon. "No," he said in a broken voice. "No," he whispered again. "Not here. Not like this." Fear gripped him for a moment. But Khadgar, he steeled himself, and the vision actually only showed him fighting the Orcs. It never showed him his demise, and his time would not come yet. The Alliance would spend months on building up a foothold on Draenor, while they fought off the occasional Horde attack. Reinforcements and supplies from Azeroth, they came at first, but the control of the portal, it was constantly contested by the Orcs still left behind on Azeroth. Khadgar was wondering why Ner'zhul had not done his magic yet, why they hadn't opened up the portals, and one night, as he was gazing at the stars, he realized why. Amongst his possessions that he took with him, like a ring that allowed him to talk in any language, he also brought notes from Medivh, notes about the stars and constellations of Draenor. He found out that a very rare event, one that only takes place every 547 years, this event would take place soon. The stars would align just right, it would empower Ner'zhul's spell work, and it would allow him to open up these portals. They now knew what Ner'zhul was waiting for, time was of the essence, and they did not only want to stop him, they also wanted to close the Dark Portal once and for all. For this, they would require the Skull of Gul'dan, but as Khadgar used his magic to locate it, he found out that the items had split. In one direction, he could sense the Eye of Dalaran, while in another, he could sense Gul'dan's magical aura, so that's where the Skull of Gul'dan would have to be. What they didn't know was that Ner'zhul, he was traveling to the Black Temple to perform his spell, and before he left, he was forced to give up the skull and hand it over to Deathwing. Deathwing had sensed the the magic and power within the skull. He had desired it, and Ner'zhul, he had no use for it anymore, so he gave it up, even though he wasn't happy about it. This meant that the group, they had to split up, so Gul'dan and Danav, they went after Ner'zhul, while Khadgar, Illyria and Trevelyan, they followed the trail of the skull, which led them all the way to Blade's Edge Mountains. There they met with the Grunn and their father Gruul, and these Grunn, they were dumb, big, powerful, and most of all, they hated the dragons that had entered the area. Gruul was more than ready to take out these new invaders, but Khadgar and his crew, they were able to convince him to join their side, and together they would take on the mighty Deathwing and all of his other dragons. Gruul was so big that he could just pick dragons from the sky and tear them apart. His sons gladly followed their father's example, while the Alliance, they were busy shooting dragons down and destroying Deathwing's eggs.
How dare you touch my creation!
Eventually, the mighty Aspect showed up, mad anger in his eyes for their actions, for destroying these eggs, and he was holding the skull of Gul'dan. He locked eyes with Gruul, and they ended in a titanic battle, while Khadgar, he tried to figure out a way to actually defeat Deathwing. He tried to use his magic straight on at first, but this did nothing. Since Deathwing, he had mastered these magics millennia before the humans even learned about magic, so Khadgar, he had to be smarter. As Deathwing fought with Gruul, he saw the armor surrounding the mighty dragon, literally keeping him together, and Khadgar figured that since his most powerful spells had no effect, perhaps one of the more simple spells would do the trick. This time, he did not aim at the dragon directly, instead, he focused his magic on the bindings of the armor, and he was able to remove the metal plates. Deathwing, he screamed in agony as molten lava poured out of him, and he was forced to retreat. Thankfully for them, Deathwing was kind enough to leave the skull behind, and Khadgar, as he picked it up, he heard Gul'dan's voice in his mind. Human, but powerful. What great potential I sense here. But that is to be expected, is it not? From the young apprentice to Medivh? You can become stronger yet if you have the courage to embrace your destiny. Why not become my apprentice? I will teach you that blood and slaughter are the keys to true...
Claim your destiny.
Even from the grave, Gul'dan still tried to corrupt and manipulate, so Khadgar, he placed the skull in a pouch, and they focused on the next task at hand. They had to find Ner'zhul, they had to get the Book of Medivh, they needed to close the Dark Portal once and for all. They just did the impossible, they won the battle against Deathwing. Perhaps they actually stood a chance. In the meantime, Gul'dan and Danav, they tried to catch up to Ner'zhul, but they were unable to do so. They did, however, take out Kilrock Deadeye, and they met up with an Arakoa called Rizik, who was able to show them the way to the Black Temple, where Ner'zhul and Teron'gor were working on their spell. At the Black Temple, Trevelyan took out Teron'gor, and Khadgar, together with his comrades Illyria and Trevelyan, they tried to confront Ner'zhul. Unfortunately, they arrived far too late, and Ner'zhul teared open a rift to a different world, and not just one rift, multiple rifts opened up all across Draenor. The planet was already corrupted before, and now it became incredibly unstable. Khadgar was able to pull the Eye of Dalaran out of Ner'zhul's hands, but Ner'zhul, he no longer required it. He forced his men to step through the portal, but they didn't want to. What little they could see from the other side did not look promising, and besides that, leaving their brothers and sisters of the Horde behind, it would be an act of cowardice. One orc named Oberys actually talked back to Ner'zhul. He tried to make him see reason, but Ner'zhul was too far gone. The hatred inside unleashed in a powerful spell. It nearly killed Oberys on the spot, and the rest of the men, they quickly stepped through the portal because they didn't want to be hit by any spell. Now it was too late to stop Ner'zhul's plans, but Khadgar, he realized that that was the least of their worries. The portals all over the planet, they made the planet unstable. Even worse, the destruction of the planet, it would flow through the Dark Portal into Azeroth itself, so they had to close the Dark Portal. Trevelyan and Illyria, they left Khadgar behind to inform the rest of the men of what was happening, and Khadgar, he already had the skull of Gul'dan in his possession, now he only required the Book of Medivh. As luck would have it, Ner'zhul did not take the book with him. Oberys held it in his hands, and he gave it to Khadgar as a last act of defiance towards Ner'zhul, the one who had forsaken them all. With the artifacts and knowledge in his hands, Khadgar was able to close the portal, and the Sons of Lothar, they made the ultimate sacrifice for Azeroth. Just as the portal was closing, Khadgar, he threw the skull of Gul'dan and the Book of Medivh to a young Wildhammer dwarf, and he told him to get it to the Kirin Tor. The dwarf asked Khadgar if they weren't coming through the portal, to which Khadgar explained that they would have to stay behind and make sure that the portal got closed. The dwarf flew through the portal as the Sons of Lothar, they stayed behind, and the planet of Draenor, it was literally tearing itself apart. Thankfully, they found a rift in which they could hide while the planet transformed, and as the storm settled, they returned to Draenor to find the planet completely changed. Pieces of Earth were now floating upside down, the sky had completely changed, and the planet looked like, we know it today, the planet of Outland. They looked at each other and they knew that they couldn't go home anymore, so they decided to regroup at Honorhold, fight the Horde so that they wouldn't do anything like this ever again, find their people and make the best of it. The people left on Azeroth, they had no idea what happened to Draenor and the Dark Portal, so they all thought that they were dead. Gromash, he took his orcs to regroup and would eventually join Thrall, while the Alliance, they built statues at Stormwind in honor of those who had sacrificed it all to keep them safe. That's the last we heard from Khadgar and the rest of them until the events of the Burning Crusade. Lord Kha'Zix, he found some sort of artifact which enabled him to reopen the Dark Portal, and during the expansion we got to step through and we got a look at Outland ourselves. In Shefrev we found the old young mage Khadgar together with the Naru Adal, and most people were surprised to see that Khadgar, he was no longer just a hero for the Alliance, he was now neutral, so he was also helping the Horde. When you talk to Khadgar, he explains what happened to them after they closed the Dark Portal. Trapped in this broken wasteland, we did our best to survive. Over time we sensed that a new evil was closing in around us from the twisted nether. More foul than the Dark Orcs, it was the Burning Legion itself that sought to take hold of this Outland. While my comrades held the line against the encroaching darkness, I used my magic to reach out into the great dark beyond. There I sensed beings of pure immense light, of unfathomable purity. It was Adal and his Naru I had found. It was nothing short of a miracle. I convinced Adal and his brethren to return here with me. I believe that only their power can drive the Legion from this universe. But as you will no doubt find, their power must first live in our hearts. To combat the darkness, we must become beacons of their eternal lights. So Khadgar, he was the one who made contact with Adal and the Naru, and he brought them back to Outland to fight against the Legion. We find more of the old heroes of the Alliance in Outlands, except for Trevelyan and Illyria. Not even Khadgar can explain what happened to them, so they're still missing, and this is about all that Khadgar does during the expansion. He's turned from this uber powerful mage, trained by the Guardian Medivh himself, he's turned into a tour guide of the capital city. Well, not even a tour guide himself, he sends his arcane servant to tour you around, and he would just take a backseat in the lore for a very long time. In the comics, he helped Medan, son of Medivh and Corona, by telling him about his father and their past. In the novel Tides of War, we find out that Khadgar himself, he is now a member of the Council of Six, and as you might know, in this book, Garrus and the Horde, they bombed Theramore, and in the explosion, the leader of the Kirin Tor, Ronin, he was also killed. Jaina asked the Council of Six for their aid with destroying Orgrimmar, but Khadgar, he informed Jaina that they will offer her no aid for vengeance. The Kirin Tor had tried to remain neutral during this conflict, and even though they had helped with defending Theramore, attacking a city with innocent children was not an option. At the end of the book, Jaina herself decided that she didn't want to become an Arthas. She didn't want to flood the city, and it was Khadgar who suggested that Jaina should take Ronin's place as leader of the Kirin Tor. The Red Dragon Coriostras, he had written down prophecies upon scrolls, and one of these scrolls, it talked about Jaina being destined for the role as leader. For a very long time, Blizzard has kept Khadgar in the background, a supportive role in the lore, so it's no surprise that so many of you were wondering who he was when he finally got his place back in the spotlight.
I've been inquiring about you, Khadgar. It would seem we have a history.
Warlords of Draenor has us facing off against the Iron Horde, a similar horde to what Khadgar and the Sons of Lothar had to face. He's coming with us through the Red Portal, taking the battle to the Iron Horde, and not only that, he's also part of the legendary questline, taking on one of the most devious, powerful and corrupted orcs of all time. Gul'dan was part of the reason why the original Horde was formed. Gul'dan was part of the reason that the Dark Portal was connected to Azeroth. He was part of the reason for the first Orcish invasion all the way to closing the Dark Portal. Gul'dan was a part of it, and Khadgar knows that he's a threat.
Gul'dan sends his best.
Once again, he's recruiting heroes of both the Alliance and the Horde to aid him, and if you want to know more about his deeds on Draenor, then check out the videos linked in the description. The legendary questline is not yet complete, so only time will tell what the story is going to bring for Khadgar, but I do want to point out two things that I get asked all the time. First of all, the weapon in his possession, that weapon is called a Tish, and this is a staff handed down from Guardian to Guardian, all the way to the last Guardian, Medan himself. It's uncertain how or why Khadgar has this staff, and I still hope that Blizzard is going to give an explanation for it. Some speculate that Khadgar is perhaps Medivh in disguise, but I highly doubt it, to be honest. We see Medivh hand over his powers to his son within the comics, so to me it simply seems unlikely. It is possible that they've retconned Medan out of the storyline and instead they've given the job to Khadgar, or perhaps Medan simply transferred his powers to Khadgar. All of these options, they can happen, but it's up to Blizzard to decide what exactly happened. Another thing that I get asked all the time is, why does Khadgar look so young? And I think this is more to do with the new models than with an actual lore reason. I believe his real age should be around somewhere between 50 to 60 right now, so the way that he looks about right for his age. The model that we see, it seems to be modeled after the way that he looked during Warcraft 1 and 2, instead of what we actually saw during the comics, how he's described in the book, and how he used to look in the game. There could of course be a whole different reason for it, but until Blizzard says otherwise, that's the theory I'm going with. It's just because he got a new model, they made him broad shoulders, they made him fancy looking. This is Khadgar, legendary questline, have fun with it. Regardless what happened there, we've reached the end of my video, so thank you very much for watching, everyone. I truly hope you all enjoyed the story of Khadgar and now understand a little bit better who he is and why we're working with him. Now, I've been answering questions and telling stories for quite some time now, and I would like to hear more from you guys and girls. So my viewer question for this week is the following. What do you think is going on with Khadgar about his new look, weapon and powers? Is he corrupted? Is he possessed? Is he the new Guardian? Something entirely different? Let me know in the comments down below. I can't wait to read it all. Thank you very much once again, everyone. Subscribe if you like my videos, and until next time, guys, see ya!
No one could have survived that.
This vessel is set to blow. We should get to safety.
Bring the cannon around. We'll send both of these ships to the bottom of the sea.
Marad. How?
In the light, we are one. I see now. You never belonged with us, Durotan. Our bond is iron. But you are so easily broken. What do you want, little girl?
Your head.
Cannon is in position. On your command.
Prepare to fire.
Such arrogance to believe that you alone could defeat me.